Todd. My name is Sandra Wendel, and the piece I wrote for Medium.com is called Will My Editor Tell Me If My Writing Sucks? And the answer is yes and no, but here's the real judge and jury. I just want to know if my writing is any good, my authors often say. I am a nonfiction book editor, and that's when I realize, aha, the fear factor. Author Anne Lamott and others give you permission to write a shitty first draft. That's her word. So do it. You don't have to show it to anyone. Just bang it out. Even my idol Stephen King roughs out his work with the door closed. It's the second draft that gets shown to selected critical readers. With your writing, you've got to climb up the ladder to reach the high diving board and just jump off. Show smaller sections to trusted readers. Listen to many, not just one. And certainly not someone who is related to you by marriage, DNA, Facebook, or work. And this is where beta readers come in. When an author has trepidation about the content of their work or quality of their message, I often suggest a beta reader process. To briefly describe the process, I help the author find about a dozen readers of the genre and ask if they will read the manuscript and respond to about 10 questions about it that cannot be answered by yes or no. Yes, you hear about authors thanking their editors in their acknowledgement sections and praising them for helping make the book the best it can be. Well, the editor's job is behind the scenes. We have to become the reader, and I put myself in the reader's shoes. So if I don't understand something, I flag it in the margin, and we work on Word documents and use track changes. And we look at overall structure. So in nonfiction, for example, that means, is the history book told in the right order? Are the details there? For a business book, is the author laying the foundation for how teams work together? Or maybe one chapter should come before another. And then, of course, fiction editors are looking for holes in the plot, character development, and making suggestions. This is the big picture view of editing. And then we get down to the sentence level. And, I mean, we aren't your high school English teacher. We actually change the writing if a sentence is weak. So a weak sentence would start with there are or it is. If you find yourself doing that, you want to look at those sentences. We might add descriptive adjectives or prompt the author for more information. And at the same time, we're tinkering with the punctuation, putting the commas in the right place, and making sure words are spelled correctly. So sometimes we go back and forth with an author a few times working on the draft, and each time it becomes cleaner and clearer. So that's what editors do. Yeah, I love this question because I tell people read books, read lots of different books, because you'll sharpen your vocabulary and you'll get a sense of how stories come together and how books should flow, and become a critical reader first. In fact, as you read books, then start writing reviews on Amazon, because those are really critical, and frankly, authors love reviews, of course, if they're good reviews. If people are students, they need to pay attention in English class when you study the parts of speech and grammar, and you want to know your way around nouns and verbs and complex sentences. You also want to widen your vocabulary and sharpen your spelling skills. I always use online dictionaries to look at word spellings and word meanings. A lot of editors are pretty darn good at crossword puzzles. I'm not, but they're the ones you want to have on your team. As far as professional preparation, there is no degree. No colleges offer a degree in editing, but English majors are often good candidates to be professional editors. And you can get editing credentials from several universities. They're kind of a certificate program. And also many editorial membership organizations offer online coursework in copy editing and proofreading and developmental editing. But the best way to prepare yourself is to apprentice with an editor I have people who are apprenticing with me, so I let them take a shot at work, and then they see what I have done, and that's excellent experience. So that's how to become an editor. A lot of people think, oh, they find typos, they're an editor. They're not. They need to know a lot more about the usage of our language. Yeah, it's funny. I say I'm really a boring person, but I have met so many fascinating people because I edit lots of memoirs and true crime stories. So my most memorable people are a bank robber. He wrote 2 books. His language skills weren't the best, but we worked together to pull out the detail about his experience in prison and his early life. And then I was so honored. I have worked with 3 Holocaust survivors who are telling their stories. They were young children during the Holocaust, and these people have incredible stories of survivorship. One of those books was written originally in Polish, translated into Hebrew, and then translated into English. So you can imagine we had some issues with words and meanings in that book. I've also worked with the Secret Service agents, police officers. They have colorful stories. And frankly, every book is memorable, but those are some of my favorites. Usually, manuscripts come to me and they're about 15,000 words to maybe 90,000 words. Over that is too long. And the initial edit, a first major edit, might take 5 days, 6 days, something like that. So I'm averaging about 30 manuscripts a year. And then they come back to me for a second edit. So I work that. So a manuscript might get 8 or 9 days of my time. And you only want to work on one at a time because you want to keep that story in your head. And consistency is another big thing about editors. We're very attuned to detail. But about 30 a year. That's an interesting question because some editors charge by the hour, some charge by the project, some charge by the word. In my book, I talk about these various levels, and I actually recommend that people find an editor who charges by the project because you don't really care how long it takes. Now, a new editor would take longer, but would charge less per hour. So as you get more experience, you can charge more per hour, and whether you and so you want to figure out that how much per hour you average. So let's say you average $50 an hour, and multiply that by the number of hours you have work in a year. It could be 2,000, it could be 1,000. So I mean, you could make anywhere from $50,000 to 100,000. I would think an early, young, new editor would take longer on projects, charge lower per hour, and probably not make $50,000 at least their first year. But you can do the math and see how much work you can get done proficiently, within an hour. But most new people start out doing proofreading, which is an overall read for absolute error. And then the real benefits are working with people who are interesting. So obviously you're not going to get rich, but you're going to love working with words and books. You must be open to learning something new. And you must be objective. Because if the author is an expert and they're writing nonfiction, you trust that they know their topic. In other words, you don't rewrite them just because you think a sentence should sound different. You would ask the author if you thought there was a problem. But you want to be helpful in your critical comment. So you don't want to say, oh, I don't understand this. You want to say in your comment, I'm not sure I understand what this means. How will this help do this? So you offer them solutions. If a plot isn't working or a chapter's out of order or dialogue doesn't sound authentic. An editor is not a book reviewer. You are the solution. You're the fixer. You're helping them write a better book. You're the force behind the scenes. So the attitude you want is to be helpful and prevent them from making embarrassing mistakes in print, which is also another thing. You look up facts. You don't assume that something is spelled correctly, places on a map, cities. You want to look up all the spellings and make sure all that is correct. It's a very detailed fine-tuning, and most editors are very attuned to detail. I think that you want to try to find an editor that you can apprentice with. I think many editors, our work is very solitary, so if we have a colleague or a young, eager student who would like to learn proofreading, who would like to learn editing, many of us, I think, are open to working with young people who want to try their hand and see how it works. Another preparation is to know the Chicago Manual of Style. This is the book industry guide for what to capitalize or hyphenate, and it's everything that you need to know. So that's another skill to learn. But try to find an editor you can work with. I know I started out typing people's dissertations, and there's always, people are always looking for help writing, and if you become an expert and know what to look for, you can be very helpful to people. Also explore Goodreads, which is a book review site, and Library Thing, another book review site. Again, spend time in a library, understand books, maybe specialize in a genre, maybe you're specialized in a certain part of a nonfiction, maybe you are a business book person. Find your niche and just study everything you can about it. Practice. Editing gets better with practice. I'm always learning still. I don't know everything. I learn something new every day. And that's really fun. Well, the Editorial Freelancers Association is a very big group, and I believe they have student memberships. And if anyone listening, if you would like a free ebook download code for my book, Cover to Cover, What First-Time Authors Need to Know About Editing, if they email me, I would be glad to send them a free ebook download code, and my email is Sandra@SandraWendel.com, and Wendel is Wendel.